G'day and welcome again to another Campfire Project Discussion. And today, first of all, I have with me Kenny Mammarella-D'Cruz, the Man Whisperer. How are you, Kenny?
Hey, doing very, very well.
Excellent.
Surprisingly.
Yeah, with daylight savings thrown a lot of us out with everything we're doing, so it's a bit crazy time. And then we have Paul Stretton Stevens, who is a future mindset coach. How are you, Paul?
I'm fine, Alan. Thanks for having me again.
I've been looking forward to you two guys coming together and having a chat with me. And we've been thinking about the subject today. We're right in the middle of this coronavirus and the impact that that's having on people and the fears that are out there. We'd like to look at what are the possible opportunities that might arise from being at home, being with family, the things that we can do around the house, learning and development, personal growth, etc. Paul, would you like to start us off on the conversation?
Yeah, sure. I mean, one of the things, there's been a plethora of information about how to deal with your emotions, how to deal with being in lockdown for X amount of days and whether that's going to be extended and how to manage that. But like you said, that there's always a silver lining here and there are opportunities to be had. I mean, how many of the listeners there have been like, working 10, 12 hours a day and not having much time with their kids and, maybe working weekends as well. It's a time to catch up. It's a time to reconnect. And those opportunities do exist. I think people just need to be aware that there are opportunities available. And there's a whole host of opportunities we can discuss here, I'm sure.
Excellent. And what about you, Kenny?
I feel that one of the opportunities is looking at the fears, whatever's triggered from the fears out there. It's like what's being triggered in here. And it's been a huge surprise for me because I guess vaguely I've been through something similar where when it came to the social isolation, what it triggered in me was when I was a kid in Uganda and we were on the death list. So while phones were tapped, we were followed, we had to go into hiding. And we needed to isolate from everyone to not only be safe, but keep other people safe. And then we wondered what's going on. What's going on with the government, with the military? Is there going to be a curfew? And it was very similar here. What's going on? Something's brewing. How are they going to control this? And then it went further into, for example, hospitals. They're building big hospitals outside London, outside Cardiff, outside Birmingham, including mortuaries. And I remember as a child, Idi Amin interrupted, I don't know whether you remember the Beverly Hillbillies. So there we were watching the Beverly Hillbillies, and the next thing we know is we're in a helicopter with Idi Amin, dropping somewhere in the forest. And it was all coffins and things like that, saying if we don't leave the country by so-and-so time, then this is where we're going to end up. So there are a lot of triggers and things that have come up. And so far, I feel very lucky that I've remembered these things, that I've never really given time and space to not just remember, but feel. And I can say to my parents, oh my God, it's reminding me of this and this. And rather than them being re-traumatized, we're just observing it and getting it in perspective, thinking we've kind of been through this before. We know that we can get through this again. And maybe because we've been through it, in a way, we can help other people through it and see how they're triggered and what opportunities they have to unlearn any fear and pain from the past and kind of pick up tools and ways of setting themselves free to live bigger, freer lives beyond restriction that we didn't even realize we had. So it's a can of worms. There are huge possibilities and opportunities. And I wonder about how to navigate these things because there's no certainty about what's going to happen. It's going to be all about here and now, step by step.
Having been through that in Uganda, that would have brought a lot of memories back to you. So, and I know a lot of people have never been through the situation we're going through right now with coronavirus. So you would have a bit more of an idea of what could be on the other side. Would that be right? from your past
I'm not
experiences?
sure about that. I'm not sure about I know what will happen, but I do hope for, I expect that people, as a lot of people have done with toilet rolls and bulk buying, will get greedy, get into a frenzy of fear and separation. And then after that, maybe hopefully break through and get more into the heart, love beyond fear, and get into caring and sharing and empathy. I feel that one big difference between then and now, and maybe even the wars in this country and now, is I feel that we were, and Britain in the past was more community orientated, where society, I would say, has separated people and kind of made us earn and lie and get into power and competition, and even with social media showing how wonderful our lives are and what we have, in order to be good enough and big enough to then connect. Where life is now saying, you don't have any of those things. You don't even need any of those things. Connect. There is no good enough. This is beyond judgments of that silly ass nonsense. It's time to connect. So there are huge opportunities, and I wonder how it'll go into waves, from every man for himself into, well, we're one. We all feel. I feel that a lot of people, and I wonder about the more isolated, computer-orientated people, are more wired, not so much with empathy, but with logic, a kind of a certain disconnection. And I can't say it's better or worse. It's just a different strain of humans, to put it in a strange way. So maybe we are different, and we need to find out who we are and who we no longer need to be. I had a client today, actually. It was incredible to find out which role he plays in his role playing online game. And that role was exactly the shadow of how he shows himself in the world. So then we explored bringing them together. So he has that passion and purpose without fear of judgment of self or others, and he can live a whole life, a much more whole life. And surely that's our opportunity. I mean, I do seriously fear domestic violence. I fear people losing the money they have, their homes, getting into, if I was a father and I didn't have money, then I probably wouldn't think twice about doing relatively despicable things to feed my kids. Luckily, I'm not poor and I don't have kids, and life is safe. But for those that don't have my privilege, it's a different kettle of fish. And I'm not sure I could come from their perspectives. It would be very easy to judge people from my perspective.
Definitely.
And I'm sure they could do the same for me. But, time to surely accept the realities of what's going on from my perspective and be true to myself as much as I can, and present with what's going on, so I'm able to respond to it, then just get into my head, judge it, and justify playing dirty games and being a nasty piece of work.
That's it. So we are the sum of all of our experiences, and those people who were, well, I'm pretty much isolated, and I have been for quite some time, in that I spend a lot of time on the computer. I live alone. So to be in this time of isolation, it's no different to me. So I don't have any extra pressures on me. I'm also, of an age now where my kids are grown up, they have their own kids. So I don't have anybody else in the house, which means there's no pressure with somebody else. But a man who's been out there trying to bring the money in to keep the family together, and most people in that live pretty much week by week or month by month. So they don't have much in the way of reserves. So if the man's whole identity has been on creating an income to feed the family, and now all of a sudden he's at home and goes, what do I do? They've got all this time on their hands. They haven't been trained to do anything else other than go out to work. So there's got to be a lot of pressure. So domestic violence is something that we already know that was going to go up. Suicides will go up. So there's massive issues around that.
Yeah, absolutely.
How can we consciously, because when you're in that state, you're not thinking about anything else other than survival. And so the emotions just run high. And when the emotions are running high, we haven't got the logic in place to actually stop and think about things and go, what should we be doing? But I think, this is one of the reasons why all these Campfire Project chats are all about, is to try and highlight the all the stuff that will go wrong, but how then to find a solution to it. So people can then move away from their emotions, start listening to the conversations, and go, and see possibilities they couldn't normally think of in their own when they're in that pressure of the emotion.
Do you know, I totally agree with you on one hand, and I would say it's move away from the fearful emotions and move into the emotions that maybe have been uncomfortable and feel into and through those. Because if I come from survival, then I'm going to be looking for trouble that I know how to survive. And that's avoiding the whole gift where life is saying, here's some trouble, let go of me so you can live a bigger life and you're more connected to love and to the goodness of life. So I think it's moving in and through and beyond this. But, men who go out and earn a living are not all saints necessarily. I'd say a lot of men who go out and earn a good living, it's because they don't know how to be home, because they don't necessarily know how to be a father or a partner. So it's right, this is uncomfortable. I've never seen it modeled. I'm out of here. And my work addiction, money addiction, doing whatever it is out there is so respected that by society, but at least no one catches me from avoiding my emotions and my family because I don't know how to do that. So many people are going to be with their partners and with their families, facing their greatest fears of connection and whatever might come up from their childhoods or boarding school or whatever it was it went through. So everyone's really going to get to know ourselves, dark and light, good and bad, and really have our fears triggered. So time to get whole. And, easy for the kids to go to school and the bloke to go to work and the wife to go to work or stay at home and do what she does and whatever. But now we're together. Now we are facing not just our demons, but we have love in our faces. How many men and people are just so scared of love that it's best to go and run and hide somewhere?
Yeah. And with that said, Kenny, I mean, this is where I think where we've got this adversity, and I like to use the phrase adversity into action. I think when we've got this adversity, we can't control that element outside of our lives. We can only control what we've got in our nucleus. And that would be our immediate family or our extended family. If you're looking after a mother, father, or from a distance doing the shopping or whatever, you can only control those elements at the moment. And that's where a lot of the fear derives from, is that lack of control. Lack of control of lives. And I think it's quite interesting because I like Alan. I'm in front of my computer quite a lot because that's when I deal with people and my clients are via Zoom, etc. And social media. And it's quite interesting looking at Facebook groups, for example, my locality, the Xmas community, for example, because you saw that fear initially, and that really there was an outpouring of fear. And then there was the conflict of, people overbuying products, your toilet rolls and everything else. And then there was that conflict online, and that just reflected society as it was, as this thing started to unfold. And you can see gradually how people have gone through those comments, and you can see how that's slowly turning now to community. And it's like you identified it really eloquently earlier on, Kenny, that in the UK we haven't had that sense of community for years. Since I was a kid, we haven't had that. I mean, I was spoiled. We've lived in Spain for 11 years, and they still got that sense of community. And the auntie lives around the corner, granddad's at the top of the road, and brothers and sisters are all around us, and cousins and everything else, and everybody knows everybody. That doesn't happen here, but it's starting to, and you can see it. I mean, when we all were on the balconies of our flats the other day on the seafront here, clapping the NHS at 8 o'clock, that was really quite something to behold, because if it wasn't for the situation we're in, we wouldn't have experienced that. And that sense of unity. And I think that's where those kind of events, it slowly unfolds and changes and becomes more community-based, which then in turn reduces the fear. Because when you have collectiveness and that community, it's the same thing, isn't it? A problem shared is a problem halved. And I think that really is starting to come to the fore.
I think that is one of the most important aspects of this is through isolation, life is demanding connection, and there really is the space for connection. And a problem shared can break a spell. Another thing that I got triggered into that I totally forgot is a long time ago, I was on a helpline for men to phone before violence to hopefully stop, so they're not violent. And sometimes there would be calls after they were violent. And my fear of people being cooped up and domestic violence, whether it's physical or emotional or whatever, it's they're going to be short fuses if people aren't used to being around. And children and adults demand attention. And it's easily stolen through bad behavior and not often rewarded through good behavior. So I fear people not being heard and lashing out, people not getting the connection, people's fears and things really kind of like allowing the red mist to show up and fall. And it could come from anyone. So I've put on daily lunchtime UK time anyway, check-ins. So every day men can just check in for an hour and say, this is how I am. This is how I'm feeling right now. This is what I'm fearful of. This is what's going on in my life. This is how I've been triggered. I believe that in time, it might turn into, this is who I'm worried about. This is what I'm grieving. This is what I've done wrong that I now wish to learn how to put right. But I'm hoping that people get used to connecting and speak beyond blame and beyond shame and name what's going on and really live better lives. Not only learning from other people, not necessarily processing, but just by being connected. For me, when I'm connected, I get out of the nonsense in my head and my fears and my fantasies, and I get real. And then I can take part in life. I can respond to life rather than reacting to the nonsense that goes on in my head.
Yeah, I agree about the connecting side of things there. But I think talking to a few people recently, one of the real values they've had in this time they've now got is reconnecting. So not necessarily connecting with new people, reconnecting with people they already know that they haven't been in contact with for a while. And rekindling those connections, reconnecting with them has become so valuable because they already have the basis of a foundation. And they're going to be experiencing similar feelings at this moment in time. And that's where the real value is, in sharing knowledge or feelings with these people that they're reconnecting with.
It helps to diffuse the situation that might be arising with a loved one who's directly there with you. Because by being able to talk to other people, it diffuses that a little bit. So being able to connect, well, what was it in the Blitz in England? You know, places were being blown up, but the bond between people, some people were saying that was the best time they had because the connection they had with neighbours and others around them, people that they may have just passed in the street, they are now having real conversations with. And they go back over time and they're talking about it, and they're talking about a lot of things that happened in those relationships, not so much the bombing, but the relationships themselves, of how valuable they were to them and how much they then took something out of that they really wanted to keep again in their life. So it's being able to get, you know, as you say, have those connections with people and build that. So
on a practical level, one of the things I've found over the years, through adversity is that sense of loss of purpose initially. It's that loss of control over what's happening to you or around you, and then that realization that you've lost that purpose that you had. And
yes, the old
and
role.
And I particularly remember that when I lost significant sight, because I couldn't do the same things as before. There's just no way I could, run a school. I was a head teacher in a school. I just couldn't physically do that. And that sense of loss of having to move away from that forcibly was a tremendous loss and totally beyond my control, that adversity. But as soon as I started, and I started before this was happening because I kind of knew it was on its way, but I had that sense of purpose. What am I going to do now was in my mind, forefront of my mind, to get out of this adversity and change it for the better. And as soon as I had that purpose, that put me on the pathway. And I think people have an opportunity here to find a sense of purpose in what's happening with them.
It sounds like you've got an incredibly strong will to be able to focus in that way and adjust, huge adjustment. How can other people do this without buying into the fear and the frenzy? I mean, how did you discover such a strong will and focus in that way?
Well, one of the things is you only surround yourself with people who, how should I say this, that people can show empathy for you, and people can show sympathy for your situation, but they can do that too much. You need to be surrounding yourself with people who've got drive and motivation themselves, and when you start to do that, it breeds that within you as well. Now, it may be something as simple as my purpose was I knew I couldn't do the job I was doing before, so I thought, well, okay, but I can do this, I can control this. So then I found the people I needed to help me do what I wanted to do.
So choose your company carefully.
Absolutely.
Because you'll be a product of that environment.
Well, you've got your own destiny. I mean, you choose. But if you need an expert in, and for me, it was learning dictation software on the computer because I couldn't physically see the screen anymore properly to write. Learning speech-to-text software, text-to-speech software, getting somebody in who can do that and understands that. Getting in a secretary, getting in somebody who can do the formatting of the books, etc., which I probably could have done myself previously, but I built a team around me for what I'm doing. And that was done on purpose. Now, I have had experience of adversity previous to that, so I drew from that as well for my drive. But we've all got that within us when we're faced with adversity. It's unlocking that. And I think some of the keys are finding purpose. Once you've got that purpose, you need to take action. And for a lot of people, that action is routine. You build a routine with your new purpose.
Because the way I look at it, sympathy keeps you locked, because people look at you, when you feel sorry for somebody, you're looking at them, you're looking down at them. So if you're in that position of receiving that sorry from everybody, you're the victim. When you come up to empathy, emotional empathy, you've got people who understand because they're at a similar level. So you've come up a little bit, but still you're not moving forward.
Nope.
One, you've got no chance of moving. The next one, you're really not moving. But then the level, as you're saying now, you're stepping up to the next level and going, okay, well, how do I change the situation I'm in? How do I move forward? And getting the right people around you, you're straight away. If you've hired someone to help you with the voice software, you've got someone helping you with the formatting and everything else, you're in charge. So you've gone from being the victim to being in charge.
And that's a real shift.
And as soon as
it doesn't have to take long.
Yeah. And if you just did it because you realize, oh, I've got to do this, so I've got to get someone, I don't want to, but I've got to, that person comes in, and all of a sudden, that effect on changing, you didn't have to I think in a lot of cases, probably don't have to think about it consciously about trying to get to that position, but realizing there was a task that you had to do that automatically changes your emotional state on everything to where you're now in charge of things. Would that be sort of right, or?
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think one of the other things here is we have societal expectations. Because I distinctly remember that when I had advice from a disability employment advisor who came to see me, and I at that point decided to re-educate, and I'd signed up to go to uni again. And they came to see me on the Thursday, and they said, okay, people in your situation now normally take a couple of years to get used to their new life. That was her expectation of me, of what I should be doing, is take a couple of years out to get used to my new circumstances. And I said, well, I'm going to re-educate, and I'm signing up for a course. And she said, no, you can't do that. I said, no, I start Monday. And it was out of the norm for her. Her expectations that she was trying to put on me were, this is what you need to do. And I think you either accept that and do what they say you should do, or you step up to the plate and you say, no, I'm going to move forward here. I'm in control of my own destiny, and I'm going to do X, Y, or Z.
And what was your emotional journey through all of this?
Don't get me wrong, there are highs and lows, you know.
There
are various triggers,
pattern?
you know. Sorry?
Was there a certain pattern in any way, or was it kind of more all over the place with lots of different changes? Did it go into, say, shock, anger, denial, acceptance?
Very, very, very quickly. But very quickly, because I made the decision. I mean, how long does it take to make a decision?
So you chose, again, this is what I was referring to as the strength of your will. You chose what to focus your energy on and what you wish to grow.
Yeah, we all have choice in life. I mean, I remember when they said, look, you know, we can't do anything about your eyes. There's no cure for the problem you've got at this moment in time. And they went from 6-month appointments to 12-month appointments to now 18-month appointments, because they just want to check every now and again, because there's nothing they can physically do. And you go, and you ask every time, and it's an emotional time, you know, and, you know, are you sure there's nothing you can do? And all these questions, etc. And, you know, they're as gutted as you are because they have to say no, and you go away thinking, building your hopes up before you go. And then you're a bit down when, you know, that's why I always book a show afterwards, because we go to London for this. So we go and see the doctors. We never know what the answer is. If they say yes, there's a cure and we're going to see it, we go into a show to celebrate. If they say no, sorry, there's nothing to do, we go to a show anyway to buoyancy, you know, build up spirits again straight away. So it's having that plan and that structure in your mindset that enables you to cope with these adversities.
And I wonder how many people, I wonder how many people are holding on to, I really want things to go back to normal as soon as possible. And how many people are saying, well, that wasn't normal. Or it's not the normal I want to go back to. I can create my new normal. What a great opportunity, which might be more vulnerable.
And that's going, you know, everybody is different. Everybody's at a different point in their lives, and it's going to be quite interesting. Some people are going to be struggling, and they're the ones that I'd like to be able to see get help from these conversations we're having. That are going, well, you know, life's over type of thing. All that stuff I've been working my tail off all of it overnight now has been lost because I'm no longer working. I've lost my job and everything else. And with men having been the hunters in the past, in particular, all of a sudden now that's been taken away from them. So they might be in the prime of their life, but they no longer can be the hunter. And so the pressure that they're going to go through, that feeling of worthlessness. And that when you're feeling worthless, that's, as you said, Kenny, that manifests in other ways, comes out into violence and everything else. The frustration builds up. And then good people do bad things.
Yeah.
So for them to know that yes, there is a, by stopping and thinking, well, what else could I be doing?
Who
Why
am
is
I?
it important to me, especially when you're at home, if you've got your kids making noise and everything else, and you're not getting on with your spouse, and you go, hang on, why do I go out to work in the first place? It might be to get away from them. Well, that's something else you need to work on. But if it was because you wanted to support them, but you weren't around there with them, here's an opportunity now to go, hey, these are the people who are important to me. Instead of my kids running around screaming and carrying on, how can I connect with them and build that relationship that had actually been torn away from me because I had to go out to work?
Yeah.
I can give them love through my being rather than through my doing.
That's it.
And I guess it's through the being that they will remember and will connect, rather than through the doing, which they might call abandonment, and then spend all the money on therapy anyway.
That's it. Exactly. Yeah.
I was speaking to a guy.
You're out there earning money to, and you're killing yourself earning money, and that's somebody else to spend when you're gone. And it's like, what was the real purpose of your life? You got your family, you loved your partner, you then had children. Where did all that go? Maybe that's something that you look at and go, how do I bring that back? What can I do now? And instead of hunting and bringing the food in, now it's a case of how can I lead my family into a better future?
Yeah.
I do believe that, sorry, Paul, you were going to say something. That one of the main differences I feel between men and boys is men can accept what is and respond, as well as share and collaborate, where boys can't really accept what's going on. It's more like a reaction to try and be in control and survive and compete. And there's no real sharing. It's all about the pecking order. But I think one of the big things that's going to come up now is, because there's going to be, and there already is, so much more emotion, so much feeling going on, boys usually need to fix things, especially when it comes to women talking about what's up and what's hurting, etc. Because it's like, she's probably telling me because she's in pain, and if I stop her pain, then she'll be happy. Where I think the shadow of that is, this is uncomfortable and I don't want to feel my feelings. So if I stop her feeling her feelings, I don't need to feel my feelings.
That's it.
Where a man can listen without having to stop it and fix it, and drop into, this is what she's feeling. This is what other people are feeling. This is the grief and the anger and the helplessness that I need to drop into. And I can feel my feelings and be there while other people feel their feelings, and let it all pass, and let us move into newer, greener, maybe initially a bit of rubble, but surely greener pastures on the other side of it.
That's it. And I think it's a case of, if your partner is upset about things, a case of, well, going, as we get into this, do you want me to fix it or do you want me to listen?
Exactly.
Just that question up front. Because, yes, when we're into the emotional empathy, when we're into the compassionate empathy, there's something there that needs to be fixed. But as you said, there were the two sides of it. One, I want to fix this because of, the love, and I don't want them to feel that way. And the other thing is that I don't want to feel that way, because we know that emotional empathy, we see it on Facebook every day, where it goes the wrong way, where people take sides. If I can feel your pain, that's the emotional empathy. But the problem with that is I might not want to feel that because it makes me feel uncomfortable. So I want to then jump in, get things fixed, because I don't want to feel that anymore. And that's why even the women are getting on Facebook and they're fighting with each other, same as the men are, attacking when they're taking sides. This is why it's back to compassion. This is why I say, if you can step back from it and go, okay, what's really going on here? What do the people really want? And if it's your partner asking that question, do you want me to fix the problem, or do you just need me to listen? Because I can do both. And if you just want me to listen, then I know this is your feelings, and I can then make that conscious decision of not taking on the pressure of it, but being able to take it in and listen to it.
I think the listening is, in any adversity, is first and foremost listening to yourself, but also listen to those close to you. But the listening skill, especially if the guy's been at work, for example, 5-6 days a week, long shifts, they come home at the end of the day, they have their meal, they have cursory chats, they sit down and watch the TV or whatever, go to bed, and they go through the whole cycle. They're not used to listening to their spouse, their partner, on a deep level. And I think what this now, and I was speaking to a guy that only about 2-3 days ago, and he's been on lockdown for about a week. And already he's realized that he needs to listen on a different level. And in his words, not mine, he says, I'm actually having to listen to what's not being said as well as what is being said. He says, I now realize that. Because you can listen to the words literally about what your partner says about feelings and their fears, etc. But there's very often something underlying that they're unable for whatever reason to, not able to articulate. And you have to perceive that, don't you? And that level of listening needs to be developed.
That's it. How often do we respond, or our emotions come out about the frustration and not the cause of the frustration?
Yeah.
I think on the other side, so that's very often, I think what you're describing is the male not listening to the female. And I feel on the other side very often, and for me it's not necessarily male or female, it's the masculine person or the masculine behavior and the feminine behavior, where very often the feminine might initially be incredibly good at second guessing, knowing instinctively what the masculine person is going to say or do or what's going on, which leaves little space for either to change and grow. And there will be change and there will be growth. And then the second guessing is actually wrong. It's limiting. And rather than listening and having space to connect with how this person's changed, it would be second guessing. And the poor bloke isn't being heard. And the reaction is to the fantasy of what he's going to say rather than what's actually said. So then man not being heard will generally, I'd say, do one of two things. Withdraw and give up and think, what's the point anyway? No one's listening. And then maybe have the finger pointed for not really talking. Men don't speak, or not really feeling because there's no space for the feelings, or get so frustrated that it will be react forward. And I guess one could be called toxic femininity, abandoning and pulling back. I guess it's abandoning and like the cold behavior. And the one might be called more toxic masculinity, which is like banging forward. So one's very yin, the other one's very yang, and in the negative it's not good. And surely it's because of not being met, not being in the moment together.
Yeah. But there's also a real opportunity in there to ask better questions. And that works both ways, either side there. Because if you've got that realization that you're listening, but there's more there that you're trying to perceive because it's not being articulated, surely that's then the opportunity to ask better questions.
And that's when I think, being able to see the expressions on the other person's face, and sometimes when you ask a question, is then go, was that question okay? Because that question can push a button and the person takes a reaction to that. And the face will give that away very quickly, the body language and that as well. And so if you're able to pick that up because you focus on the other person, if you ask a question, I'm focused on getting an answer. So I'm not focused on my question, I'm focused on the answer I'm looking for. And to get that answer, I've really got to put my attention on the other person. And that's a question I ask myself when I ask a question. Is this something that I'm looking for, and it's about me? Or is it I'm asking a question because I want to know more about that other person? And if I do that, that's when I really pick up what's going on in their face, their expressions and things. And I go, oh, straight away I know that question needs to be rephrased. So I'll then ask them, that question was probably not a very good one. There's another way I could have asked that question. And discussing that with them. So you get into a conversation now.
Yeah.
not
Better,
just trying to find
better quality
information.
dialogue, isn't it?
Yeah. And I think that's an opportunity we have at the moment in isolation, is to really start having those conversations, because we're not going anywhere.
And I feel that one of the most powerful lines I've come up with is, my fantasy right now is that you have gone cold and stopped talking to me because you're angry because of something I said or something I did or something I didn't do, or suddenly banging the plate when I was washing up and shocking you. So I'm owning it and naming my fantasy, rather than building on the fantasy and counterbalancing the fantasy. And 9 times out of 10, my wife will probably say, no, I was just thinking about the card you gave me, or no, I was just thinking about my conversation with my mother. It's very rare. In fact, I can't think of one time right now when she'll say, yes, you did this and you're right. And, you know, meanwhile, the way that I was as a child is I dare not even say, because I should be guilty for doing that thing. Or if I don't know what that bad thing is that I did, then I should know, because I did it and I'm even badder for not knowing. So it is asking the question. And on the other hand, when someone says something to me, especially if they're talking in a frenzy and repeating it, you know, and that could really do my head in, to just butt in and say, look, I just need to make sure that I've heard what you're saying. Are you saying da-da, da-da, da-da? So I've summed it up. They know they're heard. I know I've got it right, or I've got it wrong and I'm going to be put right, but at least we're there together into the intimate, merry dance of communication. Otherwise, it's like my guessing and your guessing, and it's just too messy.
That's it. Yeah, the way I look at that as well is that we talked about, you know, difference between boys and men, and it's not age. You know, it's a difference.
No.
It's a maturity, and being able
Exactly.
to take ownership and saying, hey, did I hear that right? Have I got this right? Am I, you know, imagining something here? Gives the other person an opportunity then to talk back to us. And as I say, it doesn't matter what age you are, because I went through my second divorce when I was 50, and that's exactly what I did. And that's why I got the wrong answers, because of the wrong result that I was looking for, because I took that wrong approach.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter how old you are, you're going to make mistakes along the way. But I just wish I'd had these conversations with men like yourselves back, you know, another 30 years earlier.
Yeah.
And now I'm pushing, you know, towards the 70 mark. Being early, you know, being 40 years ago, I would have had a much different life altogether. Because as I believe, I didn't really start to look at what it was to be a man until after my second divorce. And that's when my journey started changing. It took that catalyst to make me make that step. So and what I'm saying to the men out there who are listening to this, don't beat yourself up if you've been having those wrong conversations, and I'll call them wrong conversations, whether you want to put negative or positive on it, that you can change that by the advice that these two men have just been talking about, by just turning around and going, hey, taking ownership and saying, right, this is my interpretation of it. You don't have to be right. And it's great. And if it's an interpretation you're not liking, it's wonderful to be wrong. So ask your partner, talk to them.
It's information.
Yeah. And this is where you'll find a completely different shift in your energy. As you said, a boy's frantic, a man is more relaxed. Things don't pressure them as much.
And how lucky are we to be sitting here safely, comfortably, exploring these things, where I don't know about your ancestors. I'm not even sure about mine, but I doubt they had the luxury or the space to quietly, calmly make such choices. Because surely at some levels it was all hands on deck with survival, limited space because of what people might think, what society thinks, and the way things were in those days. Now, what can't we choose? Or until recently, now a lot of choice has been taken away. And I think we've got the opportunity to get things cut right back to the core of who we are, what makes us who we are, our love, our fear, our grief, our rage, and really get to clock what's going on. and to re-emerge surely into a world of our choosing. Should we choose?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I think if anybody's not happy with the situation at home right now while they're in lockdown, is to go, right, this situation, we forget about the forces outside of us, but the reactions within the family, that they have come about because of the life that we've had before. So if we're not happy with what we've got now, when things go back to normal, we don't want to go back to that normal. We want to create a new one. So if you're able to create a shift in the relationship in the house, the kids are more connected, the partner's connected and everything else, you're finding that, hey, this is what my life was about. It wasn't about running the business or making money. All of that was so that I could have the right home life. Now I create that in this lockdown. This is the greatest opportunity now of being able to do that, so that when we do go back to work, not to forget that and go back to the old ways and then get everyone disconnected again. This is a chance to really connect in a powerful way, that then when we do go to work, we're happy to go home because, yes, we're doing that for the home life. We're not out there working because that's what we've just got to do. Change the power around it altogether.
Yeah. You just reminded me of that quote I spoke about of mine recently, Alan. You know, yesterday's mindset has got you what you've got now. Craft a future mindset for what you want to become.
That's it. Because as I say,
you have the opportunity now.
Yeah. Because as I say, if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. And then I think that was Henry Ford. And then Einstein went a little bit further and said, if you keep doing what you've always done, expecting a different result, that's insanity. So there's a chance while we're in lockdown, we think we're going insane. It's our chance to actually get out of our insanity.
Didn't Einstein also say something about being of use rather than being a success?
Yeah.
I don't remember the exact quote, but it feels like we have an opportunity now.
We do.
How are we successful? By having more than others and competing? No, it's different these days. This is all, it's all being questioned. And I feel when I work with new clients, I feel obliged to say that, yeah, it's all great that we're doing this and things will change. But the cost is that you can't unlearn what you know. There might not be, there won't be a turning back. So maybe the small life of survival is safe and you're comfortable and that's what you want. Taking the lid off this, you can't unlearn. Once you've started, you can't stop. And I think it's the same for what's going on now. Things have started. We can't pretend this hasn't happened. I don't know how far in we are. This could be the beginning, the peak. I don't think we're near the end yet. But we won't be able to pretend it didn't happen. We won't be able to unlearn. We won't in the UK be able to disrespect and take for granted the NHS workers, for example, where in the past got away with treating them badly with long hours and crap wages. Things have shifted, and I don't think they can actually properly shift back. For those that would like it to shift back, it's too late. We know too much. We can't erase this.
That's it. We might go back to our employment, to our jobs, our businesses, but we would be moving forward in our life. We will never be the same. We may go back to the same job, but we won't be going back with the same mindset or knowledge.
Yeah.
And hopefully that will, you know, in this lockdown time, we're going to get closer together if we take the right approach. And in that, realize why we go to work. So we enjoy our work out there because of what it returns into the family. So as they say at the moment, or leading up to this, 87% of the population, of the working population, didn't want to be at work. They were disengaged. Now, most of them are there because, you know, they've got to earn money to pay bills and they're not doing something they like. So they hated it and they're miserable and therefore unproductive. And that's why everybody loses in that situation. But if when people say to me, oh, I really hate doing what I'm doing, well, you can do something else. Well, I can't really do that because I've sort of earned some money. I go, all right, well, just realize that the job that you're doing now is creating the money so you can work on that course or whatever it is you want to do. So that now is going to be gone from something you hate to something that's allowing you to get something you really want. So as your thoughts about your old job change, and straight away, their attitude to their employer, to the work they're doing, is completely shifted. So people now realise in this lockdown period just how valuable their partners and their children are to them. You know, this is what life is really about. When they go back to work, yes, I'll go back and earn money, but the focus will be changed. And that's what I'm hoping to see. And I think that then will have a massive difference on reducing bullying and domestic violence, because our attitudes to our partners will have shifted. It'll be more of forgiveness and more of love, more of acceptance.
I'm already seeing the shift with people that I'm talking to at the moment, in that quite a high percentage of them, and I would say in the last 2 weeks alone, probably 60–70% of the people I've been speaking to are talking about reevaluating some aspect of their life. And most of that obviously is work oriented, because they realize it's not okay, it's paying the bills, like you said, Alan, but it's not giving them, they're not fulfilled. It's not giving them what they want in life.
That's
it might pay the bills. In fact, it might bring fortunes, but it costs too much.
Yep, absolutely. Yep, definitely.
So from what
I wonder also...
Sorry,
Tom.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I wonder about those who are alone, who either choose to live alone or happen to live alone. And I wonder about two things. One is the depression that they might go into through lack of physical touch, non-sexual physical touch. And that can bring on immense depression and a feeling of isolation. And two is people who are used to having sex and how that might turn into aggression. Because very often it takes the edge off. That level of connection, or even that level of emptying out, diffusing the aggression, where's that going to go? I wonder, you know, and I guess I'm talking about purely sexual connection and non-sexual connection, and a man or a woman who gets starved of one or both, and what the effects might be of that. I feel sorry for people who work at call centers, because they're probably going to cop it.
That's it. Especially the time of day when they call.
Yeah.
So there's going to be a lot of big changes, but if people take stock, and I'm not saying that everybody should do anything, because everybody does what they're going to do. It's as you said, Paul, it's all about personal choice. But for those that choose to go, right, how can I turn this situation now? How can I get the best out of this? How can I turn a bad light into a good light? What do I need to do? And so if they stop and they think about that, think about what future they would like to have. This is when you start visualizing in a way that you start to get the thoughts and the emotions, the feelings running together. So there's a chance then to move forward into and get a better idea of what they want. If you are isolated, reach out to somebody. There's that many men's groups, there's that many women's groups, there's that many groups for communities and everything else. There's always going to be somebody who wants to talk. So if you reach out, I guarantee you go, oh, I don't want to trouble somebody. They're probably sitting at home as well going, geez, I wish I had someone to talk to. So there's those connections are going to be made with total strangers. You know, you got your family, first of all, you got your local community, then you've got total strangers. And the conversations I've had going down, just, you know, get some food at the supermarket or whatever, the conversations I've had with the checkout people. You know? And by the way, if you want to get a smile, just smile at them, and their whole face just lights up at the moment. They react so strongly, and you can't help but smile back. You know, it just makes you feel so much better. So conversations with people, you know, at arm's length, as we're doing over here, 2 arms away from each other. But we're still having conversations. And so realizing you're not on your own unless you really want to be on your own. There are, you know, technology and everything else, there's plenty of opportunities to connect with somebody else. It's just finding out, okay, who can I connect to?
It's interesting, Alan, because I spoke to a guy the other day, and he said he's got 499 connections on Facebook. I says, and we were talking, because we've been talking for a while about different things, and one of the things he was proud of was having 499 connections. I said, and how many have you actually spoken to? Because he felt lonely. And literally a handful, all these were like written interactions, you know, messaging, etc., etc. I said, well, now you've got an opportunity to connect with them on another level, engage in conversation with them, ask how if they want to have a call with you and a chat. I said, 499. If we got 12 weeks of lockdown, I said, you know, you're gonna have plenty of time filled in.
That's it. Quick message going, how are you going? What's happening? How are things in your neck of the woods? How are you dealing with all of this? And having those conversations. And if you need something to stimulate that, if you're on Facebook, Facebook tells you everybody's birthdays on that day. And if you're on LinkedIn, you've also got their work anniversaries and other things as well. So I've got to keep knocking people out of my Facebook because I get getting people wanting to join new connections. So I'm running at about 5,000. You can imagine how busy I am every day. Everyone who's got their birth dates in there, not their years, but just their day and month, I then send them a happy birthday. And I ask them now when if they respond back, I know here's somebody who is willing to connect. And they say, thank you. Then I ask them, well, how are things going on for you? What's happening in your neck of the woods? And I'm having conversations with them. And you've got about 20 or 30 of those a day. And then on LinkedIn, I've got a hell of a lot more than connections there. I do the same thing with them. So I know that I could be going 24/7 in having chats if I wanted to. You just have to reach out.
Tell me, Alan, on LinkedIn, I mean, this is a tip for lots of other people if they don't realize this. On LinkedIn, do you type your messages to them, or do you use on the mobile, on your cell phone, the voice application?
Do both. If I've got, if it's a happy birthday, it's usually just a quick typed in, because in a lot of cases, and that if you're using the phone with predictive text, as soon as you start to type happy, goes bang, puts the whole word up, and birthday then appears. So you can put out there and you personalize it, put their name in. So I can go through a large number very quickly.
Yeah.
But then there will be those, depending on how they've responded back. Sometimes I just hit the microphone. You've got 60 seconds to leave a little message. And you can have a conversation backwards and forwards just via that as well. Yeah. You can do that on Facebook and you can do it on LinkedIn.
Yeah. And I think that connection with voice really moves things to another level for a lot of people. You get a really good response from that.
You can hear the inflection in the voice. You can hear the emotion, which you can't see in the typing.
Yeah.
And this is why I love at least having videos like this on Zoom, because now we're able to connect and see each other as well. So we've got even more information that we're receiving. The non-verbals are incredible. Like when you have a conversation, the words are only worth 7% of the conversation. On the phone, they go up to 17%. The rest of it is body language and tone of voice. And people go, but you can't hear the body language on the phone. Yes, you can. It goes into the tone of voice. You know, you try and lay back and talk with a really aggressive voice. You can't. You'll find that if you want to lay the law down with somebody, you come up forward, your chest goes out, you're in that power mode. And so your physiology and neurology are going to link to each other and they're going to respond. But this is why things go wrong on Facebook, because everybody's responding to the text and they're getting it out of context. And yes, I'm not saying that the text isn't important, because you don't have a communication without the text. So all of them are equally important to have a conversation, voice, body language, and tone of voice. But the information they convey, most of it is in the body language, secondly in the tone of voice, 55 body, 38% in the tone of voice, and 7% in the words. So by looking at each other's expressions, our movements, and when we're talking, the emphasis we put into saying things, and as soon as you start doing that with the body, the voice follows on as well. And so if I said to you, I didn't say she stole the money, a flat sentence, but then if I put emphasis on I didn't say, well, I didn't say she stole the money, I didn't say she stole the money. It's putting different emphasis on the word, so the sentence completely changes. So we need to have that, at least the verbal connection. It's so important.
Yeah.
So wherever possible, use the microphone. I get people who send me long messages on Facebook, on the Messenger, and it takes me forever to read through it because it looks like rubbish on the app. It's hard to read. But then if I then respond back to them in audio, then I get this long text back. Then I send them another audio. It's quite a bit of fun. Then all of a sudden I start getting audios back from them, which is good fun. Then I can actually hear what they're really saying, not just see it.
I feel a bit of a different place to the two of you. I almost envy the way that you use social media and messages and connect in that way, because I feel that what happened a couple of months ago or so is I realized that everyone, this is probably not the thing to be saying publicly online, but I realized that everyone in my inbox had turned into an enemy because they turned into a task. And it was very interesting for me to realize that emotionally, that's how I'm reacting to people. And since then, I have taken, this works for me because this is connecting with people. And it's as close and real as it gets, where anything that was not really in the room or on the screen, I needed more connection.
Yeah.
And I guess hence the men's groups, hence Zoom, hence having meetings online, but not just reading things. I felt even more put upon by having to listen to someone ramble because they happened to be taking the child on a walk with the pram and had nothing else to do. So it's like, okay, I think I'll check in with you. Well, sum it up and don't waste my time doing this. And I've really had to step back and let other people deal with my messages and emails and social media. Until recently, people have got ill on my team, and therefore I've had to step back into it. But I need to be with people, and I really need to be away from words and typing and screens and things. I hope it's a phase I'm going through, because I really enjoy the connection and it's very efficient. But I don't know, I might just be, apart from Zooms and things like this, I might just be screened out. I just might need more of the old-fashioned connection. If that means for me less quantity, and I don't know whether it'll be more quality or not, for me it'll be more quality, then I'm going to have to miss out that way. But it got to me. It really became a problem, anxiety, battle of the emails. I was like really hooked into it. It was not good.
And that's where it just comes back to just the words on their own when you're looking at your inbox, and it's that connection. I'm extremely lucky. This week alone, I've got 23 Zoom messages, conversations going on, the panel discussions, one-on-ones, planning sessions, clients and everything else. Everything's done via Zoom. So I've got so much connection coming on this week. It's incredible. So, and again, that is because of this situation. So for some people, there's going to be great opportunities, whereas others, it's going to be a struggle. But the recommendation I'd make to anybody, instead of letting that struggle beat you down, is to stop and look at other ways of doing things. And it might be, there are other people running talks and everything else on different groups. Go and listen to all of them. This is where you can build your connection up. Find the people that you like. And as I always say, that everybody's been listening today, if you really connect with Kenny or you connect with Paul and you want someone to talk to, get in touch with these guys. This is where we can become a global community very fast. While we're in isolation, we've got such a great opportunity to come together on a global level. So
I wonder also whether there's another side to this, and what I'm hearing you say that I totally agree with is the connection on the outside and how great an opportunity that is. And I wonder about those that wish to really retreat from all of this and connect on the inside. And very often people can be so busy doing that there isn't enough being space. This might be easier for people who don't have young kids, for example, because the young kids need a lot of attention. But for those who are alone, and for my wife and I, where it's the two of us and we have our relatively mature moments, we can make the space to connect inside and maybe feel what's going on a lot more, and feel the fear and feel the grief and feel the opportunity and feel the world that we want to live in beyond this. And almost from that place, from that inner space, feel that into being on the other side. But I've heard from a couple of people that I've read about in Italy, for example, where it got totally into connection on the outside. And then almost, I can't do that anymore, it's overwhelming, cutting it off and really getting into the inner space, which I think is another great opportunity. I'm not sure there's a right way or wrong way, and surely it depends not only on the individual, but where they are on their journey of isolation at the moment.
Yeah.
But what a great opportunity, you know. It's like we are all one on Zoom, and we are all one on the inner planes too.
Yeah. So it's a balance, and everybody's level of balance between all of that's going to be different.
Yeah.
Yeah. We need that internal retrospectiveness. We need to also have our external connection, but we need to have that on a balance if we're going to be happy. And that's what I will say we need to, because, you know, it's just a fact. If you're just all internal, you're missing out. If you're all just external, then there's the opportunities on the internal that you're missing. But for each of us, that balance is going to be different.
And that balance also means when you're with your partner, if you've got kids or you haven't got kids, is if you've got kids, you take the kids and give them some space, and they take the kids and give you some space. And that's when you can work on your internal or your external, you know, your connections or whatever, or your internal work. But having a routine on a practical level will help you achieve that. The kids will know where they stand. The adults know where they stand. You plan for time where you've got personal space, and you can learn from that.
That's it.
And you can achieve that balance.
I think what you've said there about routine is one of the most important aspects of this, because a lot of people are so used to their routines and the structure and the role and the safety and everything else. And for that to be whipped away into sheer chaos can be so overwhelming and so out of control and so scary, that surely new routines need to be established, not necessarily be stuck to and addicted to, but maybe questioned and revised. So there is space for what works, and it doesn't become shoulds to rebel, but so we are being maybe held by routines and have a sense of, you know, for me, I have in the last week not had a lot of sleep because I've had a closed group every night, an open check-in every day, clients, media, emails, God knows everything. And it's been keeping up. And I've loved it. And it's unsustainable, totally unsustainable. Until last night and today, it's right now I can press the reset button and look at establishing a routine, because that really it was important to all hands on deck and prepare for what's going on, but unsustainable.
Yeah, because as you say, when you've got a routine, you've got some structure, you feel like you're in control. And when you're in control, you can then make the changes as they need to be made. So just gives you that flow. Anyway, just looking at the time, we're quickly running out of time here today. It's, as usual, and get into a conversation, and I just love the conversations we have, and time just goes so fast. And I've got a little what I call a clock up there that just keeps reminding me, Alan, you're going over time again. It always happens when I'm talking to you guys, just because we've got such great subjects. But as I said to everybody, get in touch with Kenny, get in touch with Paul if you need to. Listen to all the other talks that are coming up. This week, there's going to be at least 3 panel discussions, a lot of one-on-ones happening on Thursday nights, 8 o'clock Sydney time. Scott Carson is running a Facebook Live where he had a couple of the panel members on having a chat with him, but it gives you an opportunity to actually get interactive with it and ask some questions. And we've got Angela Heiser, who's going to be running panel discussions as well, and also one-on-one. So we're getting both the men and the women working together here in building a lot more connections for everybody. So a lot more opportunities to listen and learn, and also get involved yourself as well. So again, first of all, Kenny, thank you very much for being here. And also Paul, it's been great having the two of you. Great conversations. Pleasure. Every time I get together with you guys, I think, oh, let's forget about the time and just keep talking. As I said, I've got a pretty full schedule this week, and I've got another call in about 3 minutes time, so we better get going.
Cool.
All right.
Enjoy. Thanks a lot.
Cheers.
Bye.
See you guys.
Bye, everyone.